Thank you very much, Gabrielle. It is an absolute pleasure to be here again. And Chris, thank you to you and the IIC team for giving me this opportunity to speak again at one of the conferences. They are always terrific and very much enjoy them. So I'm going to talk about 5G, regulation, and a few things that I think from our perspective as a network operator, we think can help further the deployment of this next generation technology that we're hearing so much about. And it's kind of funny, as I was listening to Chairman Pai's remarks earlier this morning, I was looking at my own notes and thinking, wow, there's an awful lot of similarity here. And I think that's in many respects because the FCC has taken so many steps that we at Verizon believe are exactly the right things to do to help turbocharge the deployment of 5G, because 5G is, oh, there we go. That's a 5G alarm, in case you were wondering. Should we keep going? Yeah. Okay. So if it gets too loud, I'll stop. But in any event, so I think most of you know who we are. We're the largest mobile carrier in the U.S. We've also been famous over the last 10 or 15 years for our fiber to the home internet broadband service that we've rolled out in the U.S. And at each stage of sort of the deployment and evolution of networks, Verizon has really been at the forefront, whether it's the move from 3G to 4G, 4G to LTE, and now 4G to 5G. 5G is not really an evolution, it's really a revolution, as you've probably heard it described, and I think hopefully that will come through in the remarks I'm going to make now. So Verizon, in addition to the network services that we offer, we also have acquired AOL and Yahoo, who now operate under the Oath brand, to make us one of the larger online advertising companies in the world, a bit of a distant third to Google and Facebook, but we're playing in that space. We're also the largest provider of fleet telematics services in the world, through some acquisitions that we've made over the past couple of years. So we are expanding our footprint beyond pure connectivity. But we're here today to talk about circuits and connectivity and 5G, and then regulatory simplification will be sort of the main part of the message. So let me lead into it. So we find ourselves on the front end of what many are referring to as the fourth industrial revolution. The 5G revolution will blur the lines between the physical and digital and virtual worlds. Everything that can be connected will be. Innovations like artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality, industrial robotics, and telemedicine are changing the world in ways that we are only now just starting to understand. And they are all enabled by the super low latency, breathtakingly fast, and continuously connected characteristics of 5G. So one way to think about 5G is that it's really a group of new technologies that are changing the future of connectivity. First, the intelligent network. Virtualized and software-defined networks are new technologies that use software to create an environment in which data can be moved, secured, and stored publicly over the internet or privately overnight over a private IP circuit. What's more, the software solutions that manage networks will ride whatever network is available. The control plane is network agnostic. Software-defined networking, or SDN, is the technology of choice for many of our multinational enterprise and government customers who are demanding secure, high-performance, efficient networks that can adapt to the needs of multiple locations with bandwidth demands that vary by application. Fiber is the next part of the 5G story. There can be no 5G without massive investments in fiber, deep into the network. Verizon has been investing and laying the fiber foundation for our 5G network for many years. We acquired a company by the name of XO Communications a few years back. That was driven precisely by the fact that XO had huge amounts of fiber that our engineers felt could support the intelligent networks that we were designing. But deep fiber also needs a constant source of fiber, not surprisingly. So we've entered into long-term contractual commitments with Corning, a manufacturer of fiber, to buy millions of miles of fiber that we will be purchasing over a multi-year period. We've also invested heavily in spectrum, as you've heard and probably know. both through EXO, which had some millimeter wave spectrum holdings, and also more recently through our acquisition of a company called Straight Path. With our investments in fiber and spectrum, Verizon is now ready to usher in the transformational technology that is 5G. And it sounds like a lot of hype, but we believe that 5G has the potential to join a very exclusive club that is the handful of technologies that throughout history have transformed industries across every sector of the economy. So Verizon has actually been a leader in the 5G world from the beginning. We created the 5G Technology Forum in 2015 with partners like Ericsson, Intel, Samsung, and Qualcomm. As a result of those efforts, the 3GPP 5G new radio standard debuted at the end of last year. We are also involved in our 5G offering is actually somewhat unique. We refer to it as the ultra-wideband network, which provides, in our view, exponential improvements in terms of network performance with capacity that's up to 100 times that of today's 4G LTE network. And network latency is so low that data moves many times faster than the blink of an eye. Data speeds are 20 times faster than 4G, and all this with devices that consume demonstrably less energy. So let me now describe some of the real-world applications of 5G that we are now seeing to start roll out. So 5G is no longer just a trial in the United States. Verizon is now offering a product to consumers that we call Verizon 5G Home. It is the nation's first commercially available 5G home broadband service, a fixed wireless service. And if you're lucky enough to live in one of the 5G cities that we've started to serve, LA, Sacramento, Houston, and Indianapolis, you can get it. So 5G Home is the first and only 5G ultra-wideband network, and the service is the first of its kind. To put in a quick marketing pitch, if you sign up, if you're in one of those cities, you'll get free service for 3 months, and you'll get YouTube TV free for the first 3 months, and a free Apple TV 4K or Google Chromecast device. So if you're in one of those cities, it's a good deal. You should jump on it. So next piece for us, and I think for others in our industry, is going to be 5G mobile. So fixed broadband is the beginning, but mobile 5G is coming soon. We recently announced a partnership with Motorola to offer the first 5G upgradable smartphone, the Moto Z3 device. And starting next year, customers will be able to tap into our 5G mobile network by snapping on the 5G Moto mod. And as more mobile devices become available in 2019, we will quickly move to offer the nation's first ultra-fast 5G mobile service to go along with our fixed service. So this all sounds very cool, but what does 5G really mean for consumers, businesses, and governments? So for consumers, it means wireless broadband service that gives people a simple way to cut the cable, cut the cord, and get wireless internet everywhere. For your cell phone, it means 10 times longer battery life, 20 times faster data speeds, and 1,000 times more bandwidth than anything that's offered today. For enterprise, 5G will support business innovation ambitions and create new markets. 5G is really the core of the industrial internet. It's the ultimate enabling technology. So let me give you a few examples that are really focused on the enterprise side and where I think 5G is really going to have its most significant impact. So transportation. So you cannot effectively have autonomous vehicles on a wide scale without 5G. In today's network, it takes about 200 milliseconds to gather information, transmit it, and then receive back a response. With 5G, that latency comes down to under a millisecond. Think about the difference in stopping distance for a car operating with even a 50 millisecond latency versus one with, say, 5 milliseconds. If there's a kid running out in front of the car, you're going to want that 5 milliseconds. Healthcare. We've all talked about rural healthcare. 5G can make telesurgery available in rural areas far away from big cities. Education is going to be a big winner in the 5G world. Using emerging technologies like augmented reality, educators can create interactive, engaging learning environments that replicate a physical classroom and bring objects and learning to life. Manufacturing. Advanced remote industrial robotics will give people the ability to run global manufacturing and distribution centers from the comfort of their living room hundreds or thousands of miles away. Government. The first 5G cities will also be seen as business and technology hotspots, attracting business and creating jobs and ultimately generating tax revenues. Smart cities. So 5G will create smart cities that that are safer and more inclusive. As in the US, Verizon is partnering with the city of Sacramento, California to implement a range of applications, including intelligent traffic management solutions and data traffic solutions that will help designers and city planners find ways to minimize congestion as they're planning the cities of the future. So we're doing things, similar things in the city of San Jose, where we've announced an agreement to deploy fiber and install small cells that will lay the groundwork for the eventual introduction of 5G. So technology-led disruption and innovation will transform communications around the world and open business and collaboration opportunities that we can't even imagine yet. All of us in this room, however, have the opportunity to lead in this transformation. We at Verizon believe that investing in digital connectivity, and particularly 5G, will give humans the ability to do much, much more in this world and for each other. So let's imagine 5G's positive social impact on big issues like sustainability, public safety, healthcare, and education. And when you combine human innovation with emerging technology, the possibilities to do more that is new and to do more that is good become endless. So we call that phenomenon human ability. Now is the time for civil society, industry, academia, and decision makers to work together and pool resources to make investing in connectivity a reality globally, and to take the lead in exploring 5G's potential. So all this sounds great, but how do we make it happen? How can we promote that investment and encourage the innovation that we need to pull off this sea change? We believe that a key element will be an appropriate level of light touch, and in many cases, no touch regulation. Stated more directly, the right regulatory and public policy environment is critical to driving the necessary investment, which in turn fuels the innovation necessary to deliver the 5G network and applications of the future. Regulators around the world are wrestling with ways to find the right balance of interests to produce the best outcomes. The key for policymakers is to find ways to protect consumers and to ensure competition while promoting innovation and investment and avoiding regulation that skews markets. It seems like a tall order, but one change that can make an enormous impact, as Chairman Pai discussed in his remarks earlier this morning, is this: simplify the regulatory framework. Regulatory simplification promotes a pro-investment and innovation climate. It seeks, wherever possible, to rely on existing horizontal competition and consumer protection laws and deregulation where appropriate, rather than incrementally building on historic and often outdated sector-specific laws and regulations. Regulatory simplification fosters regulatory certainty and predictability, and it reduces compliance costs that add to the overall cost of major technology rollouts like 5G. Regulatory simplification speeds time to market and eases market entry, which boosts economic competitiveness. Regulators play an important role in the deployment of new technologies, especially a foundational technology like 5G. And we know that regulators care about achieving quality regulatory outcomes. And put simply, appropriately targeted, simplified regulation that is fit for purpose can result in significant benefits to all stakeholders. Conversely, when existing regulations impose outdated reporting requirements or long delays in receiving approvals, the costs imposed on technology rollouts like 5G will be material and even stifling. The good news is that we're seeing new examples every day of regulatory simplification in practice. For example, in Colombia, the Communications Regulation Commission, a CRC, has opened for public comment a project to look for ways to simplify the CRC's regulatory framework. One relatively simple way to reform regulation that has little or no impact on consumers is a simplification of regulatory obligations imposed on enterprise service providers. Regulators should consider the unique characteristics of enterprise services and the benefits of eliminating outdated regulations or taking a light touch approach when updating applicable rules. Services that cater to enterprise customer markets are categorically different from those offered to mass market consumer retail customers. Enterprise services are delivered via commercial agreements negotiated by parties of relatively equal bargaining power. These contracts are generally individually tailored and complex. They cover services delivered in multiple locations with widely divergent bundles of services, often offered under demanding service level agreements. A case in point of successful regulatory simplification for enterprise services is the new quality of service regulation in Argentina that excludes from the quality requirements certain types of business customers who have negotiated service level agreements in arm's length contracts. So turning back to 5G and then closing, regulators play a vital role in the deployment of 5G technology. Verizon's ability to accelerate the deployment of our 5G network could not have happened without the vital role the FCC has played in proactively making the necessary spectrum available and taking significant steps to adapt the right policies to facilitate the deployment of the necessary infrastructure and especially the deployment of small cells. This has all happened under the tremendous leadership of Chairman Pai. So to reiterate several of the points that Chairman Pai made earlier, in March of 2018, the FCC modernized environmental and historic reviews for wireless infrastructure, a move that will reduce the cost of deploying small cells by up to a third, and it will accelerate our deployment of 5G. The FCC also recently announced or issued an order adopting significant reforms to small cell siting and made important changes like requiring state and local fees related to the deployment of small cells to be non-discriminatory and reasonably to approximate cost. The FCC has also established new shot clocks for small cell construction and co-location. So all these reforms are important because the changes will directly address investment barriers, lower the cost of infrastructure rollout, and support further coverage enhancements. And 5G adoption is happening worldwide, not just in the US. There are more than 40 different operators around the world have announced plans to launch 5G commercial services over 30 markets, including markets in China, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and Europe. In many countries, government actions are expected to free up both mid-band and high-band spectrum for 5G in the near future. South Korea and Japan, among others, are conducting trials in the 28 gigahertz band. We are hopeful that other countries, including Mexico, will also identify 28 gigahertz for these types of services. In order to be competitive on a global scale, governments must adopt national policies that promote the deployment of next-generation networks and services that offer huge promise to consumers, the economy, and society. Some countries have already taken some initial concrete steps to adopt infrastructure reforms to accelerate the deployment of 5G. Chile, the UAE, and the UK are among them. So to conclude, network connectivity is the key enabling technology that will usher in the 5G-driven fourth industrial revolution. But to get there, we need to create the right regulatory environment for investment and innovation to flourish. Thank you.